You can't be jumping around the gym like a monkey, not knowing what you're doing, not knowing how to train, if you want to build an attractive physique, that is. Anyways, if you actually want to look aesthetic and build a very good looking physique. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to train when you want to build that type of body. Now, if you want exclusive help with that, then check the top link in the description for my one-to-one coaching, which will help you do that in a drastically short amount of time. Now, when I first started training, I fell for the bodybuilding stuff. I'll admit it. The high volume, the circuits, the bro splits, all of that rubbish that doesn't actually work effectively anyways to build an attractive physique, which is what we're looking for here. To build an attractive physique, you need to be training intensely. You need to be training effectively as well. I think that's important to mention, that we're not trying to spend 2 hours in the gym if it's not necessary. And let me tell you, it's not necessary whatsoever. A lot of people are still falling for that misinformation. And also, if you want to build an attractive physique, then you shouldn't be doing just standard bodybuilding programs that are designed to build mass in general, just mass, that's about it. But you need to train effectively, you need to train specifically, I should say, for an attractive physique, for a V-taper physique, which is where you have a small waist with wider lats and shoulders and a nice upper chest. That's going to give you a great masculine silhouette. When you prioritize those muscles that create a very nice frame, the lats, the shoulders, the upper chest, get the abs in there as well, and you actually know how to train them effectively, that's when your physique starts to look kind of crazy, to be honest. Starts to look like very aesthetic, and people don't really believe that it can be done naturally, or that you can do it in such little time that you spend in the gym, for example. But those are falsities, and I've proved that myself. If you can build the muscles that create that frame effectively, then you'll be on your way to building a very attractive physique. So in the video, I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to train effectively, to build those muscles, basically all the components that you need to put together to start training effectively and build an attractive physique. So these are the components that I'm going to go over, just to give you a bit of a framework. Low volume, high intensity, muscle group prioritization, the upper lower split, strategic exercise selection, and adequate rest. Those are all the things that are going to make up this very effective training method that's going to allow you to build a very good looking physique. When I first started to experiment with just some of the things that I'm going to teach you, my physique progress went on fast forward, honestly. And I wasn't even doing it perfectly then. I didn't know everything that I know now. So I can't say it's perfect, because nothing's perfect. I'm going to try to be fake humble, right? But it's basically the best thing ever for your muscle growth. So very first component, let's talk about training intensity and low volume, high intensity specifically, why this is the best approach for your muscle growth and for building an aesthetic physique. So when I say high intensity, I'm talking about training till failure, or training until 0 reps in reserve. And technically these are a little bit different. So training until failure is when you can't move the weight anymore. As in, let's say you're doing a bicep curl and you can get 8 reps, and then you go for another one, you try to get the 9th rep, and then you just stop halfway because like your muscles won't actually lift the weight any further. That's training until failure. And training until 0 reps in reserve, which is what I do pretty much most of the time, is when you get that 8th rep, but because you're more experienced and you know what it feels like to train to failure, basically, you don't actually go for the 9th rep because you know that it's impossible that you'll get it. So you basically just save yourself a little bit of fatigue, which I'll explain in a second. But yeah, it's important for beginners, or for people who are not experienced in training until real failure, who have not done it hundreds and maybe thousands of times like I have, and they need to go till failure, because that's going to teach you what your body is capable of. If you don't know what failure feels like, well, how do you know that you're right next to it, right? It's like if you're running a 5K, for example. If you just speed walk the whole thing instead of actually jog and run hard and push yourself, well, you'll never know what your limit is, what your potential is. When it comes to building your physique, well, these sets that take you to your limit or right next to your limit are going to be the most effective by far for stimulating muscle growth. Just 2 real sets like these would give you a way better muscle growth stimulus than 5 sets where you're not even pushing close to failure, which, by the way, is what most people in the gym do. So that's why I'm highlighting the intensity aspect first, because this is one of the most important aspects, probably the most important if you want to build muscle effectively. Now, we've got to be careful here. Don't get too excited and just start doing 20 sets per muscle every day, every session, because that's going to have the opposite effect to what you want. Training hard comes with a cost, and don't get me wrong, the trade-off is definitely worth it, but it's something you have to bear in mind. When you do a heavy set and you train until failure, you're going to incur some fatigue The fatigue is going to be in your muscles, and the fatigue is going to be in your brain as well. And that fatigue makes the next set less effective. So essentially, the first set that you do is maximally effective, right? Let's call it that. And then the next set that you do is about half as effective as the first one. And the next one you do, if you do another one, is about half as that. So on and so forth, right? So if you were an idiot, to be honest, and you did 8 sets until failure in a session, well, by the I don't know, by the 5th or 6th set or something, you're basically getting no muscle growth. But guess what? The fatigue that you're getting is still the same. Every single set, the fatigue is going to be the same, probably more by the time you get to those later sets that don't do anything for your muscle growth. So what we want to do essentially is have a nice ratio between stimulus and fatigue. You're getting good muscle growth for the amount of sets that you're doing, but you're basically minimizing the amount of fatigue. I found with myself and with clients that 2 sets is an amazing number for this. Just 2 sets, full engagement, full focus until failure. You're going to be shocked at how a seemingly small amount of work that you have to do in the session is actually going to benefit your physique. You could push for 3 sets for just a few muscles in your session, but honestly, I've not found this necessary for a very long time. The progress is more than good enough for 2, especially with the amount of time that you're spending in the gym. And 2 sets is a lot easier to track and progressively overload than more than that. Okay, now the muscles that you're going to focus on to build an attractive physique specifically: the lats, the shoulders, the upper chest, and the abs. Your other muscles still get trained, or most of them anyways, but these are the ones that you prioritize. When I say prioritize, you put them first in your session. That's how you prioritize a muscle, by the way. You don't prioritize it by doing 5 sets for a muscle when you're only doing 2 for everything else. No, the best way to prioritize, the most effective, is to put it first in the session. Now, if you prioritize these muscles, the lats, the shoulders, the upper chest, the abs, you're gonna build that V-taper frame, the silhouette like this, right? Of course, you have to be lean to have the slim waist as well, but that's a separate topic, of course. For the muscles specifically, you're gonna build that V shape. So this is the second component. It's focusing on the muscles that make you look the best while still keeping the rest of your body proportional. Like, you don't have to build everything at the same rate. I mean, that's impossible anyways. The definition of the word focus, right? You can only focus on one thing at a time. So in saying that, technically you still have to focus on one of the V-taper muscles. You can't focus on your lats and your shoulders at the same time. Technically, you can put them very close to each other. For example, to focus on the lats, you have to put your lat exercise first in the session. To focus on your upper chest, you have to put the incline exercise the first in your session, but then you would put the rest of the V-taper muscles after that. So for example, you do the lats, then the shoulders, then the upper chest. That's the way it would work. It's not that the muscles you train later in a session won't grow. They will grow, they just won't grow as fast, which is fine, because it's important to prioritize the muscles that are gonna make you look better the fastest, are gonna get you the result that you want, which is an aesthetic physique. There's also muscles that you don't train as well, believe it or not. For example, the obliques. You don't train the obliques because it makes your waist thicker. Your obliques are muscles, the abdominal muscles on the side of your abs. When you train the abs, you only train the front of the abs because those are what look good. Those are visible. Those make your upper body look great. But when you train the obliques, they will get bigger, of course. That's the point of training a muscle. And when they get bigger, they make your waist thicker because they're on the side. And that's not an aesthetic physique. An aesthetic physique is like this, not like this. So don't train the obliques. Another one, which is similar, is the lower chest. If you do a decline bench, if you do a lot of dips and stuff like that, then you're going to be prioritizing the lower chest, which is not what we want. It's fine to train the lower chest, but not specifically. The lower chest and the mid chest get trained when you do incline movements, but the muscle that gets prioritized, or the part of muscle that gets prioritized, is the upper chest, which is what we want for the masculine shelf type of look. And again, for example, the upper traps, doing shrugs, you don't train the upper traps specifically if you want the most attractive physique, because that gives you like a bull type of look, like you're all stocky like a bulldog or something. That's not the type of look that we're going for to build an aesthetic physique. You allow the upper traps will get trained naturally when you're doing upper back rows, for example, but you don't need to do it anymore past that. Everything else just gets trained for proportion: legs, arms, upper back, basically just so you don't look like an alien with weird muscle imbalances. Now the third component is the split that you use. How often do you go to the gym? What days do you go to the gym? Basically the weekly schedule that you use to structure your training. The most effective split that I found is the upper lower, training 4 times a week: Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, every single week until you die, basically. So the way that it works is that you have an upper day on Monday, the lower day is on Tuesday, and then you rest on Wednesday, and then you have another upper day on Thursday, another lower day on Friday, and then you rest on the weekend. How nice am I, right? Saturday and Sunday you rest, and then you're back to it for the following week. Training your muscles twice a week is the most optimal, so this is a very good way to do it. And the split itself actually has the upper body and therefore the V-taper factored in as a priority, because it's putting the upper body first. So we're doing upper and then lower, and then upper and then lower, and then rest, and then upper and then lower, right? And this makes it this makes your upper body sessions slightly more effective than your lower body sessions, because when you train hard, like I've explained, it's going to incur some central fatigue, some fatigue in your central nervous system, and a little bit of that is going to carry over to the next day, just naturally, nothing you can do about that. So it's better to train the upper body first when you're the most fresh, rather than training the lower body first, and then you'd be transferring that fatigue over to the upper body day when the upper body is more important, if that makes sense. It's probably not the most meaningful difference, but every little helps, right? Now this split is also very good because it has adequate rest factored in. You have 3 days off from the gym completely. This is very good, and it factors in well with sports. For example, I do jiu-jitsu, which means like if I was training 6 days a week, 7 days a week, which I've done before, it's practically impossible to recover from both. And then also as a natural lifter, this is going to be the most optimal. Like I'm assuming that you're not on any compounds, right? The compounds that would allow you to train 6 days a week, 7 days a week, not take any rest from the gym and still grow from that. Well, that's not the case here. I'm natural, I'll always be natural. So we need a split that's actually sustainable and you can keep doing without burning out. Now let's move on to the fourth component, the exercise selection. So this is the specific exercises that you should do to build an attractive physique and why they're better than the alternatives. I'm only going to give you specific examples for the V-taper muscles because those are the most important and I don't have all day. But basically you can just extrapolate the principles that I'm going to tell you and use them on all the other muscles that you want to train. So the principles are as follows. I train and I make my clients train with stable movements only. Stable movements that train a specific muscle in one plane of movement. For example, this is like doing an incline Smith machine bench press rather than doing an incline dumbbell press, or doing a seated machine shoulder press rather than doing a standing barbell overhead press, right? The reason why I do this is because stable exercises allow you to target the muscle that you're actually trying to train more effectively. Unstable exercises like free weights mean that you have to coordinate the weight yourself. You have to use some work capacity, some type of effort, which could be going to lifting the weight instead. No, you have to use it to coordinate the weight when a machine could do that for you, and you could focus all of that power into lifting the weight and getting the most strength and getting the best muscle growth progress, right? Now this is a decision you have to make for yourself, but I don't care and my clients don't care about the specific exercise that we have to do to build muscle. I'm not emotionally attached to any exercise. I just do what's best and what's most effective for muscle growth. So for that reason, I choose stable exercises where I can focus all my effort, all my mental capacity, all the motor units can focus on lifting the weight as explosively as possible, and that's much easier to do when you use machines rather than using free weights. I'll still use free weights now and again when a specific machine that I want to use isn't available, like if I have to wait for it at the gym and I can't be bothered to wait, or if I'm on a holiday and the machine just isn't in the gym at all, then I'll just do a free weight alternative, no problem. It's still going to give me good results with my muscle growth, just not as good as the results that I wanted with the machine. And it's just annoying, like I actually have to go and stack the weights and instead of just sliding a pin into my machine, like come on, that's just effort. So now that I've got that out of the way, my most recommended exercises for the V-taper muscles are as follows. For the lats, the number one is the lat pull down. I like the lat pull down. I'm doing, I don't even know, 230 pounds, maybe 235 by now. I'm not sure. I lose track of these very high numbers. I'm 164 maybe. I think I'm 164 right now. So that's a very good that's a very good weight to power ratio. That's the correct term, right? Weight to strength ratio. And that's just from training effectively, like I've showed you how to do, right? And I also like the seated row with a neutral grip, because to train your lats effectively, your elbow needs to be driving close to your hip. So that's a very good stable exercise as well. For the shoulders, it's going to be an overhead press. When you're pressing straight above your head, this is going to train both the front delt and the side delt very well, which is going to allow you to build those nice aesthetic looking shoulders. You can can do this on a Smith machine as well, although that is going to be slightly in front of your body because obviously the bar can't go through your head. So that's going to be a little bit more front delt, but again, maybe not a meaningful difference, but I like the machine better anyway. Because the shoulders are so important, and specifically the lateral delt on the side of your shoulder, we're going to need lateral raises to isolate it further also. You can do these with the cable, which I like, or you can use a lateral raise machine, which is also cool. I've actually experimented with practically everything that you can do with your physique. Maybe not everything, like no drugs or anything like that, obviously. But I've experimented with many different combinations of doing things and what works, what doesn't work. So I have tried eliminating overhead press completely and only doing lateral raises for the side delt. And I noticed worse results with my shoulders. So I would definitely recommend to do an overhead press as your primary shoulder builder. And then the lateral raises are just to make sure that the side delt gets maximum growth. Now for your chest, we want to make sure that the upper chest has the best leverage on any exercise that we're doing. The way that we do that is by making sure that your upper arm path is going like diagonal like this. So you can do this with an incline Smith machine bench press where you have like a 30-degree angle. I tend to do around there. And you can do an incline chest press machine as well, but I like the incline Smith machine the best anyways. When you're doing the incline Smith, don't arch your back too much. Try and press your back or your upper back into the bench as much as possible, because if you don't, then you're going to change the angle that you're pressing at. You're basically going to turn it into a flat press and de-emphasize the upper chest that we're trying to target. So don't make that mistake. If you just choose one exercise and you get good at it, which means you get strong at it and you do it with perfect form, you're going to grow your muscles that you need to grow very well. And honestly, you don't need to change your exercise. You don't need to, especially like what a lot of people do, jump in from machine to machine, exercise to exercise, different thing every session. No, choose one, stick at it for a long time, and you're going to build the muscles that you need to build very well. In terms of actually progressively overloading and getting stronger on these exercises, the way that I program it is you train in a 4 to 8 rep range, because this is very effective for muscle building. You train heavy, which limits the fatigue, because when you train with an increase, like a high amount of reps, let's say 20, 30 reps, something like that, your brain has to keep firing the neurons, or basically the neurons that it takes to lift those weights. Let's say you're doing a bicep curl, 1, 2, 10, 20, right? Your brain has to continually fire and do that same movement over and over again. And this fatigues the brain. This fatigues the central nervous system. So when you train in a 4 to 8 rep range, even though you're going to be training with heavier weights, this is actually less fatiguing overall for your body. And also it takes less time in the gym. Obviously it takes less time to do 5 reps than it takes to do 30. And also it's more fun because you're lifting heavy weights. Like, come on, as a man, that is something that's fun to do. You actually get to be strong and look good at the same time. It's amazing. So you choose a weight where you can only complete 4 to 8 reps and you fail within this range. So maybe you can complete 4 reps and then you try to go for the 5th and you can't get it, or you can complete 8 and you try to go for the 9th and you can't get it. As soon as you reach that point where you can get 8 reps, then you increase the weight. So if you're doing 225 pounds on an incline Smith and you manage to get 8 reps, then you increase to 230. Try and increase by small increments, because it's going to make it easier to keep good form for the next weight, basically. When you track your progressive overload, which you should be doing every single session, non-negotiable by the way, like me, I've got 500-600 workouts tracked by this point. You can use an app called Strong, STRONG. You basically you treat your sets separately. So you're doing 2 sets per muscle, right? Just 2 sets, 1 exercise per muscle, and you track those sets separately. So again, to the Smith machine example, if you do 225 pounds and you do for 8 reps on your first set, okay, next session for the first set you do 230. But if you only get 6 reps on your second set at 225, then the next session you still do 225 on the second set until you can get 8 reps, if that makes sense. Every single set you're looking to improve. Every workout, the objective is to do another rep than you did last time. Now, it's not going to happen every time, especially when you're a bit more advanced in training. I've been training 3 years now. I'm not adding a rep every single set, maybe every week, and that's fantastic for me. But I mean, if you're new to this style of training, then you will be adding a rep every workout, maybe 2, who knows, right? Depending on how consistent you are. But again, the goal of the workout is to improve. You're training like you want to improve. You're annoyed if you don't improve. Even me, I know it's not a physical possibility for me to add a rep every single workout, and I'll still get a bit annoyed if I don't add a rep. That's just the mindset that you need to keep pushing yourself and keep growing that muscle effectively. Now, the final component, extremely important, this is recovery. recovery is part of your muscle growth. The recovery is your muscle growth. I'm going to be honest with you. The gym is to stimulate muscle growth. That's the only objective of the gym, to go there, to train, to lift with heavy weights, and to stimulate the muscle growth, to start the process of building a muscle. You recover, your body is going to recover, and that's when the muscle is built. And it's only going to be a small amount. You're not going to build a pound of muscle per workout, but the small amounts, the small muscle fibers, the tiny muscle fibers that are added every single time you recover from a workout effectively, and you train them again and again and again over time, that basically adds to all the muscle that you have on your body. The way that muscle growth works is that you are either building muscle or you are losing muscle at all times. By the way, there's no maintaining muscle on a muscle fiber level. Your muscle either knows grow or it knows lose. Like that's the only thing that your body knows how to do. So the way that you actually add muscle to your frame is that you grow muscle for longer than you lose it. After a workout, it takes around 48 hours for the muscle growth process to be complete, and then it starts losing muscle from there. But with the upper lower split, we're training our muscles every 3 to 4 days, and with a good muscle growth stimulus, like 2 heavy sets, 2 hard sets till failure, that's going to be enough muscle growth stimulus to grow the muscle and grow it enough so that when we lose a little bit of muscle, technically in the next 1 or 2 days, it's not enough so that we go back under baseline, what we started with from the last session. Now, this is the funny thing. Recovery starts in your session. What you do in the session determines how long it's going to take you to recover after. If I do 10 sets of every muscle until failure in the gym, I'm going to be out of commission for, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, who knows, right? I've not been that stupid, thankfully. So training effectively, like I've talked about, and getting a good muscle growth stimulus for the least amount of fatigue possible is vital when you want to recover well. No amount of sauna, ice bath, protein even can negate the impact of poor training choices and of doing too much volume, poor exercise choice, poor rep range, all of this stuff that I've basically taught you how to avoid. You want to be training as good as possible so that you can recover as good as possible. In terms of resting specifically, you need to rest 3 minutes in between your sets and in between your exercises at the gym. The reason for this is that, well, like I've mentioned, you're going to occur some fatigue when you train hard, when you train to failure, both in the brain and both in the muscles. So you need to allow your body as much chance as possible to lower this fatigue before you hop into your next set. And it's going to build up naturally over the session. That's why the muscles that you train at the end are not as effective as the ones that you do at the start. But you, like I said, you got to give your body the best chance as possible to be as strong as possible for the next set. If you're doing a unilateral exercise, like one arm and then the next arm, then you just rest like a minute or 2 in between. Technically it should be 3, but I can't be bothered to wait that long. If you're doing an exercise that really takes it out of you, for example, for me, this is going to be a leg press. When I'm training a leg press, like I said, everything's still failure. I'm not skipping on legs. Like, I'm not a pussy. Everything has to be still failure, right? The leg press really just drains me, so I rest like probably 4 minutes, maybe 5 minutes for that. Your rest days are factored into the upper lower split already. I've talked about why that's important, and sleep is going to be essential for lowering the fatigue that you occur during your session. Central nervous system fatigue is going to build up, and this is not only for lifting weights, by the way. If you do cardio, if you do like other things that are intensive, you could say, in your life, then the fatigue in your brain is going to build up, and you need to sleep properly to recover this. You need to sleep for 8 hours as the bare minimum. The 8 hours is not the goal. 8 hours is the minimum. I sleep for 10 hours, maybe 11 sometimes, like when I've had like a jiu-jitsu and weightlifting and cardio and stuff, like, but I sleep for a long time so that I can recover properly, because we're basically treating our body like athletes, so you need to recover like an athlete. 8 hours minimum, more if you can. Managing your fatigue is so crucial, because if you overdo it in terms of your body's capacity to recover from what you're asking it to do, then anything you do from that point on is no longer effective. You're literally going to go backwards. You're going to be trying to make your physique better, and you're going to be making it look worse. So you can see why that is basically a recipe for disaster when you want to build an aesthetic physique. Now, if you implement the training methods that I've described, your training is going to become effective because you know what you're doing, enjoyable because you're progressing all the time, efficient because you're spending like 3 hours per week in the gym. My sessions are 45 minutes, 2 sets per muscle till failure, like 5 muscles per upper and lower day. It's 45 minutes. It's literally nothing. So you can get better results than guys who are spending 3 hours a day in the gym. How is that fair? Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's fair, but if you know what you're doing, if you know how to train optimally to build an aesthetic physique, then that's just what the reality is. So make sure you're doing everything that I've described, and you're going to see how insane the results are. This is basically the closest thing that you're going to get to a V-Taper Physique cheat code naturally. And yeah, just give it a try and you're going to see what I'm talking about. If you want to build an attractive physique, then check the top link in the description for my one-to-one coaching. I'll get you where you need to be in 16 weeks. If you're not ready for that, then check the second link in the description for my program, which will give you all the tools that you need to build an attractive physique. Links in the description if you want to build an attractive physique.